Warp Core Breach, Episode 20. Supporting Role.
Captain, enemy ships decloaking off our port bow.
They're charging weapons!
Shields up! Red alert!
They're firing!
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach, Episode 20. On this episode, Nick and David talk about supporting roles. The faction report goes into a mirror darkly, again. Natasha attempts to make David give it up. Griffin vacations to Runara 4. John introduces some would-be nices. The Holonovel gets picked up off the shelf. And then we all talk about our favorite prize ships.
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host.
I want my boogie!
Tamalita.
Oh, no, you've got some tube grubs on your mouth again. How you embarrass your mother.
I'm Nick Norris.
Oh, Nick. Being silly again. Although, wasn't Nog Rom's son?
Yes, that's true. Oops.
Oh well. You've seen one Ferengi, you've seen them all.
Yeah, you've got to have the lobes for it.
The lobes?
And I'm just a mere human.
The lobes for business?
The lobes for memory, apparently.
Ah. I'm sure there's some Ferengi rule of acquisition about memory or something.
I can remember it for you wholesale. Little Total Recall shout out for you.
Memory is 9/10 of the law.
Memories. Ooh,
okay, I gotta stop the singing right now.
I knew that would work.
Yeah. Hey, nothing like singing to get us right back on track.
Hey, yeah. 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 Nothing but manly men here. Yep. Get her done.
I'm going to start off with a report on my demo activities from this past weekend at Central Valley Con, if that's all right with you.
Gee, I don't know. Let her rip.
Okay, so basically I set up Star Trek Attack Wing at a table in the open gaming room, which was a lot of fun. Just two simple fleets, Federation against Klingons, and didn't have tons of activity in that room as it was, but did have a chance to spend a decent amount of time talking to a guy who really enjoys X-Wing, and not a super competitive player, but somebody that enjoys the game. And he was standing around, we were talking for a little bit, and eventually he's like, okay, hey, why don't we play a game? And so we did, and I was explaining to him the differences in the two systems, and he was following along, and he's like, okay, I interested in hearing how things were different, and cloaking rules, and how you could fire when you were in base-to-base contact, and how planets worked and stuff like that. And best thing I've seen, and I've seen this with a lot of X-Wing players, is their maneuvers are always spot on.
I've noticed that myself.
Yeah, X-Wing players know how to fly in this game, and they will surprise you with the moves that they pull off.
No kidding.
He pulled a 2-turn to get around the corner of the planet and had a perfect shot on my Thunder Child, and I was like, dang it!
Slick toxic.
Did not think you were either coming that way or able to pull that move off.
I did not see that coming.
It was great, though. And he got first and second kill on me. I got a comeback, but he ended up winning the game, and that was great. We had a blast.
I'll bet you did.
But when you're demoing, it's not about winning and losing. It's about having a good, fun game.
Yeah, showcasing all the different aspects and features of the game and enjoying it, because you're not going to get a new player out of the game if they don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Or if they don't see you enjoying it.
Exactly. And while he's not going to pick up Star Trek Attack Wing because he's not a big Star Trek fan. He was very interested in picking up some planets to incorporate into X-Wing games, because he was a little
there you
tired
go.
of 6 asteroids or debris fields or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just wants some variety, and was saying, well, how do you think that would work? Do you think 2 asteroid fields, or should I go to 4 asteroid fields, or 3? And we were kind of brainstorming that, and we were having a real good, proactive, productive conversation about that stuff. And
Excellent. A think tank.
yeah, truly a think tank, and taking his knowledge of X-Wing, my knowledge of Star Trek Attack Wing, and trying to get a creative idea out of that, and not
Nice.
disparaging. We both came in and said, hey, 2 great game systems. How do you think we could improve both? And and when you're not coming in from a position of mine's better, no, mine's better, I think you can actually end up somewhere really good. So I had a lot of fun, and it was a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, my buddy Francois and our group actually tried a little bit of cross-play between X-Wing and Attack Wing, and had some interesting times.
Yeah. The best thing this guy said was like, 5 attack dice. That's crazy. Yeah.
But wait, there's more.
Well, I didn't want to show off the Borg or anything that was rolling 6 or 7 or anything.
Oh, the Interceptor 8. It would be perfect.
I should have been pulling off like the real small ships. He was enjoying seeing even like the tiny prize with a 180-degree firing arc. He was like, "Oh, there's ships with 180s?" I'm like, "Yeah, consistently." And he's like, "Okay, that's a cool thing." And he liked the captain chits and the way you could mix captains around. And he was going, "That's a neat difference." So
yeah, because the captains are embedded into the ships in X-Wing.
Yeah.
Mind you, there's a few variations, each with a different captain, and that's where the ability text comes into play. But still, the ability to just change it up is quite different to them.
right, he was really enjoying a different take on a similar system. So it was a good time.
Yeah, they're not even so much cousins as actually brothers.
Yeah,
They're so similar.
someone recently described the two as X-Wing is like chess, and Star Trek Attack Wing is crazy battle chess.
Yes.
And I buy that.
No, we
a
don't
bit.
talk about checkers.
Yeah, I mean, checkers is what it is. But
Oh, speaking of battle chess, my dad and I once, when we were traveling up Vancouver Island for a vacation, we brought our regular Nintendo with us, and we found a shop that rented games, and we found a game called Battle Chess, and it was very reminiscent of the chess game on the Millennium Falcon, where you have characters that move across the board, and they actually animate and attack the other pieces. It was so cool.
that's awesome.
Nice little memory. Thanks for that.
Hey, glad to be of service. But I love that comparison, because it's saying, hey, X-Wing can be this refined game, and Attack Wing can be this crazy uncle that you only really interact with on holidays, and you don't necessarily want to own, and you understand that he's got problems, and maybe he should be in a psych ward under guard, but it's still a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, family reunions on the badminton field. That's the best place for that, huh?
Exactly. But you still love it.
Yeah.
You love the system that's there, and that's the best thing. Like,
you calling us crazy?
Yes, I'm calling myself crazy. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to insult anybody else. I am calling myself crazy.
Okay, for all those people out there, know where I'm coming from. Most of you have listened to the show for a while. Me, myself, I consider myself weird, strange, nerdy, cool in my own way. Normal people bore me because they lack inspiration. They lack passion. And with this little tidbit, think of this. Normal people don't actually exist. The people you think are normal are just hiding their quirks very well. Just give them a chance. Let them flourish.
I'll take that one step further. Everyone is a nerd /geek about something.
Yeah. Be it football, gardening, Star Trek, collecting toenail clippings.
It might be very weird to you, but to them, it's what they care about. And
Gold member.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so that's our personal aside. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to lately. What have you been up to with Star Trek lately?
Well, we gathered at our local gaming hole last week, and no, it's not a hole, it's actually quite a wonderful place. We went to attempt at Temporal Cold War OP1. Unfortunately, we only managed to get 3 people to make it that week, so we did what we call shadow buy-in. So we just paid extra to cover extra players, so it was still valid for the store in that sense financially. And it was also our first crack at the new blind boosters. So it was rather interesting. I let them pick all theirs first, just to give them all the shots, because I already had my set, so I didn't want to take away from them. Poor Jason. He pulled the Interceptor 8 first time out of the gate. I feel for the guy. He had a really creative Soong build that was would have been quite effective if it had a decent support ship, but that Interceptor 8 just did not do him any favors. But we got to see some other cool ships, like the Baroque came out, the Belak came out, which is what I got to fly. And it was fun just to have them exposed in the group and to finally see them all together and play them. It was cool.
Yeah, now I'm convinced that the Interceptor's still the worst of the lot, but
Yes.
if it's flown in a different manner, it can work. And that takes a lot of different approaches. It cannot be a frontline ship. It has to basically play a flanking role and come in from the side and play mop-up.
It has to play as if it's got Picard maneuver under its belt.
Sure.
Whether you're using it or not. Just play with that concept. You launch in, you unleash, and you try to get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Or you just vary yourself. Maybe throw in one of the sacrifice type cards on there, like Tasha Yar or Suicide, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Kamikaze run, basically.
Well, it all just depends.
Yeah.
It's messy, to say the least.
Who wants to try to squeeze in some fleet captain crew boost on there before they retire? Throw on some Bajoran militia and beef that sucker up.
Even then, it doesn't help you when it's a booster. It only helps you once you've got it to build with. And at that point, I'd still rather have Interceptor 5.
True enough.
But anyways, yeah, for me, I've got Temporal Cold War 2 on this coming Saturday.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. That is December 12th at Gate Play in Hilmar. So I know we've had at least a couple of people that have come just because they've heard it on the show. So it's always worth mentioning.
Awesome.
If you're in the area, come out. We start at 1. Yeah. And I think on that note, we should get into our main topic.
The lesser factions and the independent. How do they factor into the game? What is the role that they play?
For me, at least, in unlimited play, it's a bit different. These factions definitely play a support role. Sometimes they can even be leading stars. Certain ships like the Alpha Hunter, the Ratosha, sometimes even Vulcans under the right build.
The Relora Sancour?
Yeah, the Relara can be great leading pieces. But for the most part, the cards on these ships are amazing support cards for mixed play. I'm talking like improved deflector screens.
Yes.
Con 8, Con 6. Great captain. Even a card like Bajoran Militia has elevated the Bajoran faction so much because of what you can do with it.
It's given them a fighting chance.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and it's done wonders for the Federation Bajoran Deep Space Nine.
Yes. Now, in order to get maximum effort, you do have to take the fleet captain.
Of course.
But
Adding extra crew slots.
well, not that, because Deep Space Nine has 3 crew slots, but in order to make the points work in a 50-point cap.
True.
But even then, Bajorans have some neat pieces. Leonalis is a great captain support piece for disabled captains, or even discard captains. Look at Golma Dread metas.
No kidding.
And then Kira, the captain that gives you target locks for all your other ships, is a great support captain. And I don't even care what kind of meta you have in terms of unlimited ship pure or fleet pure. Kira is a captain you want to at least be considering. So there's a ton there, and we're missing tons of stuff or skipping over it. But
just don't have time for everything.
Yeah. I mean, the Rolaris Sankur for a long time was one of my top 10 ships in the game. The Vulcan Blind, the Timur, I think was the name of it. The one from Resistance is Futile.
Right.
That might be the Talkir.
Yeah, the Talkir.
Yeah. Mitigating damage for auxiliary power. That's a great ability. Great for survivability. And 3 dice out of a 180 arc is not bad whatsoever. It's not amazing, but it's not bad.
That's 4 at range 1.
Yeah, you can make it work, and it's got battle stations, so you get some quality. And now with what Vulcans have off of the Saleya blind with Vatash Katur, I'm a lot more apt to run the Talkir. So there's some options out there. Some
faction synergy.
Yeah. The problem you get into is when you get a new faction like the Zindi, and you're going, okay, cool. They're a faction, but they've got 3 ships, all of which are prize ships. So unless you win every single one of them, they're not doing anything for you. And each ship on its own doesn't really have a lot of synergy.
No.
Now, the Zindi weapon that's coming out at the end of December will probably boost that faction up again.
And then again when we get some retail releases in the spring.
Right, which we're due for 2 more of those. So pretty soon the Zindi will have 5 small base ships and a large ship.
Right.
In whatever capacity that is.
And what was that? It was a reptilian, and what was the other ship? Was it another insectoid?
I think it's an aquatic, actually.
Ah, even better.
Yeah, I almost wish it was an insectoid, because I think they could use the swarm ship more than another lumbering cruiser, but...
Yeah, they'd have to introduce a good mechanic to make the swarms work well, though. Like combining attack dice or something.
You're right. But maybe that means another insectoid is on the way, and then they'll have a retail to match every prize ship.
That would be cool.
That would be. So, we can only hope. But even like a faction such as the Ferengi started off as a single prize ship, and then they got a booster, and then they got 1 retail, and then they got a shuttle retail, and then another booster. And they're still a really small faction. In fact, I think they're the 2nd smallest faction, right behind, or right above Zindi.
Yeah, because even the Vulcans have, 5 ships?
Yeah. I guess species only have 3.
True.
But...
True.
I don't really consider species a small faction.
No, because 1 bio ship is quite the piece to contend with, let alone 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to the finals of the World Championships, you're no longer a small faction.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of pieces here, and I guess maybe we goofed in not explaining what we consider the small factions to begin with. That, for me, and Nick will add in a moment, are Vulcan, Kazon, Ferengi, Zindi, Bajoran.
Agreed.
Mirror's too big. Of course, the initial 4 are too big. Borg's too big.
The initial 4 being Federation, Klingon, Romulan, and Dominion, of course.
Yes. And species we discussed. So
Yeah. And we don't count Q Continuum until we see ships from them, and I don't see that happening any millennia soon.
no, I think it's much more likely that we'll see something that allows a ship to be considered Q Continuum and its own, or just Q Continuum.
Agreed. That would be an interesting concept.
Well, that'll make it jump to the top of the initiative order,
Yeah.
which would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Independence we specified
Of course.
attached to this list. So,
The League of Non-Aligned Worlds?
yeah, and I've mentioned a few times, I would have loved to have seen a Delta Quadrant faction.
Mm.
Right? Give me Vidians plus Hirogen plus Kazon plus Voth, maybe?
Yep, that was my next point.
Plus, I forget the name of the race of the garbage scow people.
Oh,
The Malons?
Malon.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, that would be enough interesting ships and crew and stuff to be kind of like an alliance of
Mm-hmm.
things. And maybe the Voths are too powerful. I don't know.
How about the Hierarchy?
Oh, yeah, that would be good too.
That would be interesting indeed.
I think that it would have prevented things feeling like, oh, this is way too small. Because I'm going, we need another Hirogen ship. If the Vidians are truly supposed to be something, we need another Vidian ship.
Yeah, and there is another class of ship of Vidians, let alone just another belt buckle.
Yeah. So, who knows what this future has? As we've stated before, we're hitting Wave 21. We've had up to like Wave 26 announced, and we still think they can double what they already have.
Oh, and if any of you WizKids folks out there are listening, one word, Tsunkatse.
I'm not even sure I know what that means, so you might want to clarify there.
The one-on-one combat, Pank, when the Hirogen prisoner was working with 7 of 9 in the fights.
Oh,
the arena.
With The Rock, yeah.
Yes, Dwayne Johnson,
the
Rock.
Pandari champion.
There you go.
So yeah, bringing it back to Attack Wing. Minor factions, definitely solid supporting pieces in this game that I think are very much worthwhile. Without them, this game would have gotten boring a long time ago.
Oh, for sure. Would have gone a little more stale and stagnant.
Because, yes, it would be interesting to have, like, 6 super factions.
Mm-hmm.
Fed, Klingon, Romulan, Dominion, Borg, Mirror. But it also would have gotten old.
And it really adds to casual play as well. When people want to play out their favorite episodes, things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Custom missions and scenarios.
There's so many things that they've yet to tap into that we're just sitting here waiting to see and hoping to see and going, oh wait, once they do that, they can have that mission and then we can play that on the tabletop and oh yeah, that'll be great.
Oh yeah, it's like people were worried that they were going to run out of ships to make for the Eagle Moss line of models, and they just announced that they're going to go full bore for another few dozen runs. So Attack Wing's got more than enough room to continue to grow, not only in unique ships, but other personas.
Well, and as we're seeing with the Robinson,
Mm-hmm.
they're not afraid to go into the realm of captured ships, rebranded ships. So it's not hard to envision things like the Naprum, which is Gul Dukat's Klingon bird of prey, and other ships in that vein that we don't want to spend too much time on. But how cool would
Ferengi Enterprise D.
I was just going to say, how cool would it be to get a Ferengi Enterprise D? Because for a faction that's perhaps stuck with one model of ship, there you go, or a Kazon Voyager, it would be a thing, and it would be a thing that brings life to the game and gives those minor factions some other pieces to play with.
Again, Star Wars X-Wing came up with a similar thing when they did with their Rogues and Villains, or whatever they called it.
Scum and Villainy?
Scum and Villainy, that's it. They have alternate versions of some of our popular ships.
Yeah, well, and some of it's canonical, and in this case, all of this is canonical to Star Trek. They
That's
just
right.
have to get creative with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all out there, and maybe you jumble up the stats because you've got a crew that's not familiar running the ship, but it's there. And I think that would bring a ton of resources to these minor factions and would make them even more playable as their own faction.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was kind of similar concept as like the difference between the Federation Defined and the Mirror Defined. They were built off the same plans, but there was a different understanding of the technology.
True.
So they weren't able to implement it in the same way. So they got different things out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what we hope to get with this idea.
Very true.
Speaking of Defiant, I'm looking forward to the Valiant that's coming up.
Yeah, is that January or February?
I believe it's January. I seem to recall it was the next wave after Christmas.
Okay. Yeah, now we may be getting things towards the end of the month now, or even they may skip January and push everything back a month. But
yeah, so the next thing I was going to say is for those of you that are not aware, word from the local distributors around me are saying that December 23rd is the projected drop date for Wave 21.
Which is also what the solicits on the WizKid event system that the stores see say. And
yeah, I know lots of people were expecting them early this month.
Yeah, and I had seen those solicits and I went, oh yeah, that'll be a thing, and I never thought to mention it. So it's December. It's what happens.
Yeah, and as of this recording, we have just recently received the preview for the Robinson, and we have the light ship to go. So given the amount of time between now and release, it'll probably another good week or so away.
Yeah, maybe even 2 weeks, but then again, StarTrek.com may not want to wait that long, so maybe sometime next week.
Stay tuned, kiddies.
Alright, and our final bit of news before we get to our contributors, which we have many contributors on the docket, so we're going to make this brief, is that you may have seen news about the Fellowship of the Rules. And you may have seen my name and Nick's name attached to that, but we wanted to take some time to actually let you guys know what's going on with it, because we are trying to be transparent in what's going on. So, first off, we are not an official WizKids body. We are not affiliated with Worf. We are not trying to replace Worf, the WizKids Rules Forum. To my knowledge, we do not have anyone that's on Worf on our team, though that would be really cool/weird if we did.
No kidding.
Spies much?
Yeah, we're just fellow members of the community that care enough about this game to want to try to fill the void that's left in the gaps in between Worf releases.
Yeah, Worf does a decent job of putting out information, but there's two things that I've never liked that they do. They don't explain rulings, and they tend to go 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks between ruling drops. So, if you notice our rule link, we have an explanation to every ruling. Some rationale as to why we made the choice that we did.
Right.
And we are always happy to explain more as to why we made the choice that we did.
And in often cases, it's not about coming up with a ruling so much as a clarification of what it actually means and how it's supposed to function, or how it can function in the case of some of the really odd cards that just don't make sense on their own.
Yeah. And the other thing we're trying to do is do things more often. It may take us a week or 2 weeks. I mean, it is December. December's a time of travel and family holidays and stuff like that. So it's not the quickest turnaround time, but, you know, when things aren't crazy hectic like that.
We want to give you a regular presence.
Exactly. We want to be around and easily accessible to explain things. And I know I've had several people that have asked me questions and said, "Hey, can you answer this?" And I say, "Hey, here's my quick interpretation of it, but let me throw it over to the rule committee, and we'll get you a more cohesive answer." Basically, I'm a TO, Nick's a TO, everybody else in the group, I believe, is a TO, and a lot of the time, we struggle to come up with an answer to these questions. We're trying our best, as every TO is.
Often having to makeshift on the fly.
Yeah, we're trying to crowdsource this. We're trying to put brains together and say, "Hey, I don't know. What do you think?" And the more people we have coming together to do that, and the reason we don't have 50 people on the team is because that becomes unruly to try to get to work. See Congress for what happens when you put 100 or 435 people in a room together. It's a little insane.
So we're reaching for like a quorum is more what we're going for.
Yeah, and we've had internal talks about expanding, and we might. No promises there, but it's something that's always under discussion. So I wanted to start things off small because this is uncharted territory. And hopefully this is something that the community sees as useful. This isn't me or anyone else trying to make a power grab. This isn't anyone doing it for the fame or glory or riches. There are no riches. It's just us trying to help each other and trying to help the community at large.
Exactly. We're part of that community. We're doing it as much for ourselves as we are for all of you. So we wouldn't be doing you any services by having any ego or anything else attached to it, which is all the more reason why we come to a consensus on the decisions we make.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll admit it here. I've been outvoted on things, and I've had to go, okay, I've been outvoted, and that's fine. I'll live with it. I don't have to be right, and I think that everybody else is sitting there and going, hey, I got outvoted, and that's okay. It's not about each of us having to be right. It's about each of us presenting our best interpretation of it and allowing other people to do the same and coming to the conclusion that we think is right as a group.
Right, because if you're going in trying to be right, you're just looking for conflict. If you're going in to just find a good answer that the majority of the group can accept, that's when you find community.
Yep.
Leave the conflict for on the table.
That's the best place for it, because then the dice get to resolve it.
Yes.
All right. Speaking of the community, we're going to toss it over to our wonderful contributors who have great things to share with you. And we've got a couple of new guys with segments as well. So pay attention to them and let us know what you think of them.
Give it up for our new blood. Hip hip hooray.
Hello everybody, I am Christopher, aka Classico, aka Mr. Classico, depending on where in the interwebs you run into me. And I'm a new voice on this podcast, and I was invited by David to do a little segment talking about the narrative aspects of Star Trek Attack Wing and how they set apart the game from, well, anything else out there. This is a Star Trek game after all. And since we are talking about narrative and track, I thought the good name for the segment would be the Holonovel. If you like it, cool, let us know. If you don't, again, let us know, and we will be able to sort it out. But for the time being, I will call this the Holonovel, and I will be very happy with the name. I want to give a quick overview, just for the first segment, just for a few minutes, give a quick overview over how strongly the narrative aspects is interwoven into the core, or with the core of Star Trek Attack Wing. Let's just start with the ship selection. Both the way the ships that we get to play are canon designs, and they all are. They all came from the screen. They have been seen in the show or in the movies. And for a starship fan, starship nerd like myself, that is already a strong part of the narrative. Just seeing a Galaxy class on the table already gets my creative juices flowing and already wakes in me the need to tell a little story. And the same goes for the abilities, both of the ships and of course the cards that come with the ships. Why can the Enterprise E fire torpedoes without needing a target lock. Because if I remember correctly, in Insurrection, and I might be wrong on this because I kind of tried to forget Insurrection, but that's kind of another point, she fired a torpedo at a cloaked ship. In Star Trek Nemesis, Diana Troy used her telepathic abilities against the Viceroy, and then we got a card that basically does that. You can use Diana Troy to attack the enemy captain and give yourself an advantage. The Enterprise, or in general the Starfleet engineers, have always been very focal characters in the series, so we get very powerful abilities based on Star Trek engineers, and those abilities fit the show. Scotty could transfer power from the shields to the weapons, so we get just that in card form. Then there are a few cards that don't do that, that go outside. There was this one card with the creature, some sort of pulse, I believe. In Voyager, the Ferengi used this ability to contact the Delta Quadrant Ray artificial wormhole in the atmosphere of the sun, the corona of the sun, something like that. It was one of the Barclay episodes that I remember. Oh, such a cool character. In the game, this card just gives some sort of movement ability, and that did never really sit right for me, but it just went outside the storyline. But luckily for the narrative gamer, most of the time, these cards represent what they did on screen very nicely. Now, if you consider yourself a competitive gamer, if you're just out for, winning tournaments or playing very tough, if you're still with Star Trek Attack Wing, despite the lull that the game went through a while back, and despite the fact that there are other games out there which might be a bit better balanced towards competitive play, it is probably because of the track factor, because you like playing the organized play events. I mean, the episodic OPs obviously are based on episodes, hence the name. So you are replaying a part of the narrative in a competitive way, but still part of the narrative. If you are playing one of the storyline events, you're playing a number of special scenarios based on the, individual elements of the storyline, but combined they form a big story. And at that point, you basically play a narrative campaign. So even if you consider yourself the most hardcore competitive player, if you are playing Star Trek Attack Wing, there is a bit of narrative game in you. But I was talking about how the narrative influenced every aspect of the game, not always in a good way. Let's look at the Borg, maybe as the most extreme example. Why were the Borg so powerful? Because the ships that we got in the game represented what the Borg could do in the show. In the narrative, the Borg were this big threat. They could turn on the spot. They could take on entire fleets of ships. They could fire all around. And that's what the Borg became in the game. They were very powerful. They had all the abilities that they had in the narrative. And as much as they love Star Trek Attack Wing for the simplistic game design or game rule design in the background, the points value system does not represent special powers like this in any way, shape or form. So even though they had points costs comparable to other ships, they were immensely more powerful than those. Borg were not undefeatable, not unbeatable, but they were certainly unbalanced. After the nerf, and I have to congratulate WizKids at this point, the nerf, it still left all their abilities intact. They could still turn on the spot, they could still fire all around, but, well, they didn't quite have the range. They weren't quite as unpredictable, and those little things helped to balance the Borg. They were still a very strong faction, but those helped to balance the Borg, maybe making them weaker than they should be in the narrative, but making them playable again. It is possible to play against them again. Since I'm already running a bit long, I would just like to add that, or finish with the thought that Star Trek Attack Wing is a fantastic game. It's a lot of fun, and it also helps to bridge this gap between narrative gaming, campaign gaming, if you will, even though there are no official campaign rules for it, and the competitive aspects. And I think in my 20 years of experience with miniatures gaming, that was always one of the big conflicts, the tournament players against the campaign players. And, with the tournament players usually being more vocal. And I think both are parts of a greater hobby. Both are very important play styles. And if you concentrate on one or the other, of course you would be better at that, but you should never forget that there is more to the hobby than just your preferred game style. And personally, I would say Star Trek Attack Wing helps a lot to bridge this gap and to maybe even get some communication going between both extremes. So if you're a competitive gamer, you can enjoy the narrative with this game, and when you're a narrative gamer, campaign gamer, you can still kind of get competitive with what you do. Thanks for listening. I'm Christopher. If you like this, let us know. If you have any suggestions what I could change, again, let me know, and I will see you or hear you next time.
Good evening, and welcome to the Faction Report, the segment that brings you the inside scoop on all the factions. We'll show you how they really work, expose their weaknesses, find innovative combinations, and help you make them work better. And now here's your host, the man who is not Picard, David Walton.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Faction Report. Last time on the Faction Report I spoke about how Mirror Universe was a faction that had access to a lot of ways of having multiple attacks per turn. Another thing that the Mirror Universe do particularly well is they have a lot of abilities that revolve around discarding or disabling crew in order to get a bonus to your attack strength. I really like that in terms of fluff, because the Mirror Universe was always portrayed as being a very cold and dark place, and the fact that they see their crew as discardable is a good way of saying that, or a good way of showing how that faction functioned in Universe. The first place to start looking when you're looking for this type of upgrade is with captains, and there are 3 captains in particular that will allow you to either disable or discard crew to boost your attack. The first is the Skill 6 version, Mirror Universe version of James T. Kirk, who as an action can disable up to 3 of your upgrades to gain +1 attack dice on your next attack for each upgrade that you disabled with this action. It's pretty good. It does, however, mean that you are spending your action to do this, and unless you find a way of getting a second action out of your ship, and there are ways of doing this, it does mean that you are probably going to attack with 3 extra dice but no more quality, and that doesn't seem to me as always the best way of doing things. It does mean, though, because they're disabled rather than discarded, that you can do the trick over and over again. The second is Skill 4 Mirror Universe Benjamin Sisko, who, as a passive ability, can discard up to 2 upgrades. It doesn't have to be crew, it can be crew, weapons or tech, and you gain +1 attack die for each card that you discard with that upgrade. This is great. It means you can still take your actions, you can still have the quality that you would need in a particular attack. It does mean you're discarding stuff, but you can get 1-point upgrades. That's not an issue, particularly allowing you to discard crew, tech and weapons. It means you could put a 1-point R phaser array onto this onto the ship that has Sisko on it and just discard it for the bonus. I think it's really good. If you've got a particularly big ship with lots of upgrades on it, it means you can do it more than once. It does, however, mean that once they're gone, you can't do it again. So timing is an issue with Sisko. A kind of muted version, toned down version of Sisko is the captain version of Elim Garak. During the roll attack dice step of the combat phase, you may discard 1 of your crew upgrades, draw +1 attack dice. Seems reasonable. The low captain skill and the fact that Sisko is just the same but better for the same amount of points means that I often overlook Garak, particularly because Crew Garak does an interesting thing. Crew Garak allows you to disable your captain for an extra dice. Now, if you're disabling crew or discarding crew with Sisko to bring your attack up, you could then use Garak to disable Sisko to get an extra attack on there. So that's quite an interesting combination. Another interesting combination I like is the I will deal with them myself talent that allows you to discard the card to disable 2 of your crew upgrades, and if you do so, roll 1 additional dice for each upgrade disabled. Again, with Garak, with Sisko, with an elite talent slot, and already having the quality that you would have because of a lot of other things, this means you could potentially get 2, 3, 4, 5 extra attack dice on an attack, and that's pretty good. That does give you quite a lot of stuff that you can do with it. That works even better when combined with another elite talent called Intendant's Orders. Intendant's Orders, during the playing phase, you may disable this card to remove up to 2 disabled tokens from your crew upgrades. Combine that with I Will Deal With Them Myself, and you could potentially re-enable the cards that you've just disabled to use with I Will Deal With Them Myself. So there you go. Quite a lot of things that you can do to give you those extra attack dice on perhaps a one-shot thing, but certainly it means that you can have a ship that could put out quite a high level of firepower on one of its attacks, and with the upgrades I spoke about last time, you could potentially then use that ship to fire multiple times subsequently. So, Mirror Universe, lots of attacks, lots of ways of boosting your attacks, an interesting faction, and certainly one that I intend to use a little bit more in future. So, that's the Mirror Universe for you, and next time I think we'll be taking a look at something a bit more mainstream. Thanks very much for listening. I'm not Picard.
And here's Natasha with Dude, It's Just a Game, a perspective on Star Trek Attack Wing from someone who isn't completely obsessed.
This week, I'm going to make David give up the Lakota, and he's going to try his best to hold on to it.
Yeah, right.
So, I've determined that I'm going to explain to him all of the reasons that the Lakota is the worst, okay, not the worst, but a very bad reinforcement booster that's not really worth my time or energy, and he's going to convince me why it is. I guess we'll start with the obvious, Tuvok. That's really all I need to say.
I think you need to say a little bit more than that. Discarding a card to get a free scan action is not the worst thing ever. It's just not. It's actually a decent upgrade. I grant you that it's overpriced a bit, but it's still a worthwhile effect.
It's not a worthwhile effect. It's not worth anything to have a 3-cost crew that takes up a space on your ship to perform an action that you get anyways.
You're not scanning as your primary action, you're target locking or doing battle stations. Here you're getting a bonus action for the cost of a crew, and you don't have any other crew members to compete with Tuvok on your booster.
Well, then just leave it off. It's so completely lame that it's not worth the space. Just have no crew.
Well, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing here, but I'm saying that Tuvok is not the worst thing. Now, what ends up happening is that Tuvok has no synergy with the rest of this booster, but in constructed play, being able to get a discard for a free scan is not terrible.
And I'm fundamentally disagreeing with you. It is terrible. It's a bad idea, and whoever thought of it should unthink of it.
Good luck with that.
Your argument happens to be for the tech on this ship.
It does. Micropower relays. But I think this is actually a good thing. It's repeatable, and you're gaining back durability. Granted, it's not useful until your ship has taken some damage, but there are times where you have no worthwhile action to take. You're out on the corner of the board, nothing can shoot at you, you can't shoot at anything, and you say, hey, I'm going to spend an action to get healthier.
Yeah, but you have to use your action to repair 1 damage. I will grant you that it makes up for itself in being able to flip crits, because there have been times that crits have really ruined my life, and if I could just make them regular damage, it wouldn't have been as bad. So I'll grant you that one concession, that they helped, but repairing 1 damage doesn't do anything if the big Borg sphere is just going to fire you again in 3 seconds.
Oh, I grant you that too, but what if you're being killed by death by 1,000 cuts? 1 damage might make all the difference and make 1 more ship shoot at you, and that will potentially give the rest of your fleet a chance to survive.
I hear you, and while I'll say that of the cards on this ship, Micropower Relays is one that I could maybe see myself using, but not so much.
Okay, now, I think we can both agree that Defy Orders is just terrible.
It's pretty awful. I mean, what's the point of performing a maneuver if you're not going to attack? Basically, you're saying I'm getting myself out of range, but really, not so much. And the thing flies like a boat. It's like the Voyager.
Again, not the most useful thing, but there are places for it, especially on the booster. I hate it in constructed play. For booster play, it's better than some of the other elite talents across the board.
The one saving grace is that because it has a 180 firing arc, you can have an enemy ship in your firing arc without being in theirs. So conceivably you could just be setting yourself up for a better turn, but again, it doesn't maneuver extremely well, and the white and green maneuvers may not be worth taking.
Still, you can do a 4 straight and a 4 straight. There's options there. The named ship, and you can't argue with me on this one, that this is actually worthwhile. I'm not talking about only 3 dice, but 180 degree forward firing arc is good. The maneuver dial's iffy, but whatever. But the named ability here, when attacking during the modify attack die step, you can convert a hit into a crit for an auxiliary power token. That's useful.
Well, I am a woman. I can argue about just about anything.
Oh, I know that well.
I am going to say that I don't believe that the named ability is as nice as you want it to be.
I agree in the sense of I wish that the ship had more green maneuvers and less red maneuvers. But still, being able to pick your moments to give your opponent critical hits. I'm talking about knowing that you have 4 hits, but then making it 3 hits and a crit. That is a clutch move.
Maybe, but maybe the crit that you give them is Captain Skill 0. Maybe it's a bunch of others that, while slightly annoying, don't alter the flow of the game in any way. Sure, it'd be great if you could get a direct hit on them, or a warp core breach, using that ability. But more than likely, it's not going to, and to me, there are other abilities that could come on the ship that would make it worth the 2 extra points for me.
The 2 extra points is justified by the extra shield. The named ability is just icing on the cake.
A shield never has been nor ever will be worth 2 extra points to me. I'm just gonna say it.
Okay. So I guess you're even going to tell me that upgraded phasers are not a good card.
They're horrible. I would take Tuvok over that weapon.
You're insane. You're absolutely insane. I'm going to say that now.
Okay, maybe not Tuvok. That's a little far. But, I mean, sure. They'll probably end up on my ship if I pull the Lakota, because I don't really have any other choices. But, I won't use them. You get +1 attack die only on 3 attack or less. So, okay, 4 attack for 3 points.
Well, come on. They're an extra attack die. They just sit there. You don't have to disable anything. You don't have to discard anything. You don't have to jump up, do a song and dance, pat your belly, rub your head, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. Plus, if you attack fighters with them, you get to make another attack against them. And I know that this is probably holdover because you love fighters, so you don't want to like this card. But this is one of the best cards in the game right now.
I do love fighters, and so yes, I'm a little hateful on the hating on fighters. I don't understand why everybody has to hate fighters all of a sudden. But I don't actually think that for 3 points adding, I just don't think that the cost to benefit ratio works out. 1 attack die, literally 4 attack dice. That's the most you can get. Means nothing. And sure, on the Lakota, because that's the ship I was unfortunately given, I will equip it. But it's never going to go on any other ship.
Again, you're still insane, because this thing has a place in the constructed game going forward.
I disagree.
It was used to beat you in the last tournament because it was on that Super Defiant. So you're telling me that at the end of the day, that upgraded phasers have no place in your world?
Unless I'm forced to. That's correct.
Enjoy losing.
Enjoy losing to me not running upgraded phasers.
I mean, if you're running Federation ships, and maybe that's the thing, if you're not going to run Fed ships, then you have no business with upgraded phasers, because these then cost 9 points for non-Fed ships. But on a Fed ship, on the Defiant, on Excelsior class ships, on Miranda class, stuff like that, you're boosting the attack value up and making them something formidable.
Right.
But that's a debate for another day.
Well, I think that we both ended up on the same side of the fence we started on.
The crazy side and the right side?
And I guess I'm just going to hope that you get the Lakota and I don't at our next tournament. So I couldn't convince David and he couldn't convince me. But hopefully one of us convinced some of you.
Probably not, though.
Well, that's going to be it for this week. But next week, I think we'll try to cover the last 3 ships. Kind of suss out the good and the bad. And then we'll kind of be done talking about those. And we'll go back to some other interesting stuff.
So until next time, remember that, dude,
it's just a game.
Hello, players, to the Would Be Nices, where we talk about homebrew fun and what we'd like add to Star Trek Attack Wing. If you've ever seen the Impact Nor episode of Deep Space Nine, where Chief O'Brien splits his team into 3 groups to scavenge parts, must have, could use, and would be nice, we're going to do the same thing with our ideas. Would be nices are fluffy cards and ships would just be fun to play with. Could uses would improve factions or change the meta. And then must-haves would be rule changings, rulings, other fixes and additions just to make the game more playable. Hopefully what we come up with will be fun to add to homebrew games and inspire your own ideas. To that end, we'll be looking at 2 related ideas this time. One a would be nice, and the other I think would be an interesting could use. Our very first would be nice is a crew upgrade I wouldn't be surprised to see in a future ship pack. Now that's your first hint. Second hint, think Next Generation. Third hint, think DS9. Got it? Give up? Well, it's Thomas Riker. That's right. With all the other Rikers out there, we'll finally get a Fed Riker that can play alongside them. The way I envision the duplicate being set up is as a unique 3-point crew, Federation independent dual faction. The reason for the dual faction? Well, Thomas was Fed in his Next Gen appearance, but Maquis in his DS9 appearance, and Maquis are independent in Attack Wing. We can also use these 2 appearances as a theme for the card abilities. Card text could read something like this. Action. Place 3 time tokens on this card to flip over 1 critical damage card or repair a normal damage. If your captain is discarded, this card becomes your new captain at skill 3. You do not pay a faction penalty to deploy to a Bajoran ship. Now, I think this is a good blending of what he did in his appearances, keeping a science station running with constant repairs, and stealing a starship. And there's plenty of room for us to play around here. Maybe he should be a 4-point card, and then not require an action. Maybe he should be a skill 4 captain. Maybe remove the Bajoran faction, which I added partly for fun, seeing as he did sneak onto a Bajoran station and steal a ship that was dual faction enough for me. Now that's our first card for this segment. Our related could use, you might be able to guess. I'm thinking of a new tournament resource called Transporter Accident, and I think would bring a pretty interesting change to the game. It's text. You may play 2 of the same unique crew, captains, and admiral in the same fleet with the following restrictions. 1. You cannot play 2 of the same unique card. So no Starter Picard and Starter Picard, but Starter Picard and Ahab Picard from the Enterprise E, just fine. 2. You cannot use the Admiral and Captain version of the same card, so no Enterprise A Kirk and Enterprise A Admiral Kirk. That would just be weird. 3. If one of the 2 cards is a Captain or Admiral, you must pay an extra point for it. If both are Captains or a Captain and Admiral, you may choose which card receives the penalty. So if you play Gold Ducat and Gold Ducat, you choose which one costs extra, but if you played Captain Riker and Will Riker, Captain Riker gets the point. 4th and lastly, faction penalties are doubled for both cards. This is mostly an attempt just to limit potential abuse since the game wasn't really designed for this. I think this would be a very refreshing change to the game. We can start putting more of these Rikers and Worfs and other duplicates to use. And just like Thomas, there's plenty of room to play here. Maybe remove the faction penalty. Maybe it's okay to have the Captain and Admiral versions at the same time. Maybe it's a 10-point resource. Maybe we don't limit the number of cards, but the resource costs 2 or 3 points for each duplicate added to a fleet. It's all about just trying to have fun with these variations and see what works best and most fair. And those are our first homebrew ideas. As with anything we'll discuss in this segment, these are just my ideas of what I'd like to see added to the game. Feel free to create your own. Do you like these ideas? What would you change? What would you add? What other ideas can you think of? Always remember, outside of OPs, we're not strictly locked into the text and rules WizKids lays out for us. We're only limited by our imaginations and what we think would be fun. So let us know your thoughts on the Facebook site or in the Star Trek Attackman community on Google+, where I'll be posting these homebrew ideas after each episode is released. Thanks for listening, and keep thinking outside that box.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Today we're talking about the mission Runara 4. That came with the Kazon Halleck Raider, and it recreates Voyager's Basics episodes 1 and 2. Really, it's not a real close scenario based on that episode, but that's the intention. The forces are the Kazon Nistrum, 70 points including one and only one captured Federation ship with a hull value 4 and one Kazon Raider, versus a Kazon Halleck, which is 40 points, including one and only one ship, and it has to be a Halleck Raider, so that's a named version of the Kazon Raider. The planet is in the mid-center. It's an original planet, so 4 inches should get across it, and a objective token is placed on the southern edge so that it's half on the planet, half off. On the northern edge, we have the Kazon Nistrum and the Federation ship on the normal entry area on the north side. And on the south side, 1 inch from the objective token, so it looks like a kind of arc, is the Kazon Halleck ship. There are also 3 mission tokens beside the play area. Now, the mission tokens represent Voyager's crew attempting to get command of the ship. We'll go over that in a minute. Special rules include the Runara 4 colony, which is the objective token, not the planet. It's important to remember that. The objective token has no weapons or ability to evade or shields, but it does have 12 hull. Now, it doesn't suffer critical hits except for 3, the minor explosion, the console fire, and the direct hits, which effectively give you a potential another hit if you roll badly. The Kazon Halleck have an ability to be reinforced. If the Kazon Halleck ship is destroyed, then you put a Kazon Raider, just a plain old Kazon Raider, in the same entry area that the Halleck ship entered at, and that can go ahead and shoot as normal. If that's destroyed, then another Kazon Raider gets put there forever. So there will always be at least a bare Kazon Raider to harass the other side. Now, the Federation ship at the end phase rolls an attack die. On a hit or a crit, you put a mission token on the ship card. When 3 mission tokens are on the ship card, the Federation crew has regained control of its ship, and it switches sides. Now, the objectives for the Kazon Halleck force is to destroy the ships controlled by the Kazon Nistrum forces, which include the Federation ship if it hasn't switched sides. And the Kazon Nistrum's goal is to destroy the colony, so to do 12 points of damage to the colony. Now, when I first looked at this scenario, I thought it was a bad scenario and a win for the Kazon Nistrum and the captured Federation ship, because I neglected to realize that the colony was not the planet itself, but the objective token, as I said a minute ago. This is important because if it were the planet, it's relatively easy for the Federation ship and the Kazon Nistrum Raider to destroy the colony because they get the chance to fire from the first turn. Because the objective token is on the opposite side of the planet, though, the Nistrum forces have to round the planet in order to be in line of sight to the objective token. So that does make a big difference in the scenario. So don't inadvertently allow the Nistrum forces to just shoot at the planet and do damage to the colony. As to what Federation ship to use, this is a tough one because there are a lot more Federation ships around than there used to be. In fact, you could even use the Prometheus, but don't. If you use the Prometheus, the Nistrum forces will just flat win. In order for the Hallecks to have a chance, you've got to use a ship that has some limitations, and I recommend Voyager or Bellerothon, but Voyager is probably a better choice for balance purposes. Now, Voyager does have 360 fire with an aux token, but that aux token will work to balance the scenario as well. I would put Federation weapons and tech on the ship, but not crew or captain. And I would put a Kazon captain on board. Now, I would also not use transphasic torpedoes because, again, you just might as well cede the mission to the Nistrum forces if you do that. On the Halleck side, you need to really up that ship's attack dice. I recommend you allow the Halleck forces to cross-faction while allowing the other side not to. And that means you need to do everything you can to up the dice if you're going to have a chance. I recommend Type 8 phasers from the Federation, which is maybe not too crazy a notion, since I think Type 8 phasers more like represents an upgrade. You know, it's just more expensive for other factions. And I might also recommend tribbles. I know that's independent, and I know it has its downsides, but this is a mission that's very tilted toward the initial turns, and you can always beam the tribbles off too. If you do that, you might just have enough dice to win the scenario, but it's still far from a sure thing. There's a lot of potential ways this mission could go, depending a lot on how both sides build their fleets. On the Federation Nistrum side, what they really could do is just go straight for the colony and totally ignore the Halleck ship. If they do, they've got a pretty good chance, probably 50% or even a little bit more, to win, because Voyager or Bellerophon or any equivalent ship can deal the damage, and at minimum it's going to be 3 rounds until the Federation crew seizes control. Another thing I would do along that line is, instead of allowing the mission token to be put on the ship card for a hit or a crit, I would also do it for a battle station, so that only blanks don't do it. That leaves you with a little bit of uncertainty, but if you don't, there's no chance the Federation crew is going to ever regain control. And in fact, you would probably be within your rights to just say that at the end of each end phase, you put a mission token on it, and after 3 rounds, the Fed crew gains control. If you do that, you're tilting it a little bit more toward the Halleck side, but probably not enough so that the Nistrum side doesn't have a good chance of winning. But if you do it with the hit-crit battle stations, that still retains some uncertainty. On the Halleck side, thanks to David Montgomery, I think the initial best option is to place your Halleck ship facing the northern edge of the board, facing the planet, bumping right up against the planet, and then go through the planet with a 4-speed. That would be your first round. Now, to be sure, you want to select one of the smaller planets. Put the 4-speed over the top of it to make sure you have the right one. If you do that, then you've got one chance to fire at the Nistrum Federation forces before they get anywhere near to being able to shoot at the planet. Now, even if you up the dice on that Kazon Halleck ship, you're probably not going to destroy any ship, even the Kazon Nistrum, in one turn. But you can certainly weaken the Kazon quite a lot so that you can possibly destroy it on the second round. I recommend taking the Federation independent fleet captain, because you're going to need to maneuver like crazy. That's the only way you're going to have a chance. So you need the maneuverability, you need the up dice, and you might also consider upgrades that allow you to force the enemy, at least one of their ships, to fire at you and not the planet. They're going to do it on the first turn anyway, because they can't hit the colony, and you're the only potential target, so they're going to shoot at your ship anyway. So keep that in mind. It doesn't hurt to have 1 or 2 tricks to absorbing damage, but even if they do both shoot at you, remember Voyager's not an actual Federation ship with like Picard or Spock or anything, so they're not going to be hitting you with ultimate quality, but there's always the luck of the dice. So one possible option for the Halleck is to try to destroy the Kazon ship and then work on the Federation ship. If you do that, you can possibly kill the Kazon before they fire a second time, and if the Federation player doesn't roll really well, you might just be able to destroy the Federation ship before its third time to fire. And that, if you do, that will increase your chances to win. If not, then you're basically hoping for the Federation to get its ship back. And in any of my playthroughs, I haven't had the Federation team gain control of their ship one time, which is why I was recommending an automatic mission token at the end of the turn, or some kind of variation. Anyway, it's still a fun scenario, and the interesting part is, I don't know about you, but I don't play Kazon Raiders much. The Predator class sees a little action on the boards, but the Raiders are such non-existently powerful ships, they don't see the board very much. So this is your chance to see those Kazon Raiders on the board and to shoot at a Federation ship that isn't actually manned by the Federation. So have a little fun with this episode. I'd put it at 3 stars despite its balancing problems, and recommend that everybody give it a try. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.
And now it's time for the Warp Core Breach Top 3. We count them up from 3 to 1, and then we toss it over to our contributors, so you get the best bang for your buck. This week's Top 3, Top Prize Ships. So, for better or worse, this game, at least as far as competitive play goes, tends to thrive because there are prizes on the line.
Shinies.
Yes. And thanks to new paint jobs, some of them actually are shiny. See the Bellerophon and the Intrepid.
Mm-hmm. Drool.
But we wanted to take a few moments, to talk about the best of the prize ships. Say you're new to the game and you say, okay, hey, I want to get some prize ships because they're the things I can't get off the shelf. What would be the ones that are actually worth spending some money on? This isn't necessarily saying, hey, these are the best ones that are worth their price. These are just the ones that I think have the best cards in them.
The ones that work best for you, and the ones that work best for me.
Sure. So we'll give you our top 3, and then we'll talk about the things that we didn't make our own list, because probably things that didn't make my list are on Nick's and vice versa. So yeah, Nick, do you want to get us rolling with your number 3?
Absolutely. My number 3 is the Chatang, Dominion War prize ship, Klingon Brel class, that comes with a couple really handy cards. Sign-On, one that adds the range 3 ruler to your sensor echoes, which I find so handy, and Barrage of Fire, non-unique. So if you happen to be a bit of a collector of sorts, such as myself, who recently snagged a second, you can put them on 2 ships, or you can put both on 1 ship. Very handy. It's a great way to combine the attack power of 2 ships. This is what makes swarms possible. Without cards like this that combine the dice of lesser ships, they just don't quite cut it. And Barrage of Fire is the perfect example. It's the building block with which we may be able to get some more hope for swarm fleets in the future.
Yeah, I think another Barrage of Fire, something that came in a retail pack, would be a card that would make swarms work.
Yes. It's kind of like the halfway point between regular ships and squadron fighters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You also need something like this to work for defense, but...
Yes.
Anyways, I'm with you. The Chatang is higher up on my list, so I'll reserve my thoughts on it for later.
I thought it might be.
Yeah.
What's your number 3 choice?
My number 3 is Assimilation Target Prime. And I feel a little bit dirty for talking about this. Because
it is a dirty ship.
It's probably the most expensive prize ship that's out there right now.
It once went for $150 US on eBay.
Yeah.
It bounces between 50 and 75 these days.
Yeah. But the reason I like it is it's a cool model. The Borgified stuff on a Galaxy just looks cool. And for the mirror version, the non-Borg version, to have a named ability where you can disable a shield to get an extra attack dice, so you get 6 attack dice, that's a pretty powerful Galaxy.
That is pretty sweet, considering that the base regular Federation one only has 4 attack dice.
Yeah. And this is a pack that comes with 2 different named versions. So you're getting some good money. And Captain Riker is a very nice captain that's in here. He's the double up captain. He doesn't trigger himself with his free actions, but, he gets extra battle stations evades and target locks, and that's always nice.
There's plenty of synergistic options to make him sing.
But my favorite card in here is the regeneration sequencers. They're a Borg upgrade, and whenever one of your upgrades is discarded, you can repair 1 damage to your hull. Or you can discard this card and spend 1 drone token to repair up to 2 damage.
Pretty nice.
So it's a really nice ability. Now, you have to have drone tokens to do the second side of it, but even just to have the first, and hey, upgrades get discarded and you get a damage back. That's a nice thing. I've run it with double regeneration sequencers before to get hull back and to discard and get more damage healed, and it's a nice thing. And of course, my favorite talent for shouting, "We won't go back!" I just have to toss that in, especially after Walton mentioned it last week in the faction report. So
I noticed that.
It made me smile. That's all good.
Me too.
Good times from a previous show. Hey, that's how we have fun. But even, the crew wharf isn't bad. And, there's no card that I hate in this pack. There's some that I've never used, like Fire All Weapons and Biogenic Charge. But
Fire All Weapons is a good card. I've used that quite.
It is a good
well.
card. It's just very expensive at 7 points.
Agreed.
And it can only go on this ship at cost. You have to pay more to get it on an Intrepid or a Galaxy class, and since there are no mirror Intrepid or Sovereign classes, it gets wonky. But
either faction penalties or purity causes a little issue for getting it on there. Yeah.
But it's a good pack.
Indeed.
So I think that brings us to your number 2.
Well, my number 2 probably won't surprise too many people. I went for the Stargazer. It's a handy little ship. Comes with a number of very nice cards. Quite a bit of controversy when it first came out with the Tactical Station that was met with some quick revision, making it go from a non-unique to a unique card, which I still say the best method to deal with this card is to make it 1 per ship.
Agreed.
And WizKids seemed to follow along with that when they came out with like Navigational Station and things like that. So we'll see if maybe down the line they might make a little bit of revision. Here's hoping.
I doubt it, but that can be a TO discretion. Just say, hey, around here, they're 1 per ship.
That's exactly what I have done, actually. Next up would be the Secondary Impulse Reactor, a nice cheap little 1-cost tech that, hey, if you get stuck with an auxiliary power token and you got a red maneuver, you don't have to worry about the penalty of your opponent changing your maneuver and possibly throwing you off the table.
Right.
Handy little backup, and some people did misinterpret this as not taking another auxiliary power token, so that's just a little bit of clarity for those of you that might not have known that.
Right. But hey, still a worthwhile card for 1 point.
Oh, especially if you've got like the extra point or 2 that just need filling and you can't come up with anything better. Toss this in, and it's just a good buffer to protect you.
Yeah.
And my favorite card from this pack is Picard Maneuver. Ooh. This one has seen me to victory many, many times. And early victory as well. You launch yourself into the middle of the board, sometimes even past the middle, right into their face before they've barely moved, and all they can do is just sort of pick and claw at you a little bit, barely doing anything, while you're ready to do some serious pounding. Especially if you got some extra tricks up your sleeve.
Yeah, it's the one time that I've actually used that talent from the Sovereign where you get to fire with a primary and a secondary weapon. Launch in and then do 2 shots. Kind of cool.
Yeah. And another thing, the ship itself, it's pretty solid. It's a 3-1-4-3, so it can support fighters. It's got 180 forward arc, the full array of ship actions, scan, battle station, evade, target lock. It's got decent maneuverability. It doesn't have the come about. Not a lot of them do in Federation, but it does have a white hard turn. And, of course, the ship's ability. During the activation phase, you may disable one of your active shields to remove one auxiliary power token from beside your ship. Something makes me wonder, were there Vulcan engineers in the building and construction and design of this ship?
I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah, I would think so too. So, all in all, it's a pretty well-rounded pack. And I won't go into all the other cards, and yes, I know I didn't talk about Picard and all that, but just, focus on some of the finer points, and you can find what you like about it.
Yeah, I do like the Stargazer. She was in my, top 10 for consideration, so... Well, hey, there's 25 prize ships, so that's saying something.
Know.
She made the upper half.
That one to me was mostly about the variety that was available in the pack.
Yeah, there are good cards there.
Mm-hmm. The tactical station can be used anywhere, It adds a slot that it takes up, so it basically, as long as you've got 4 points, it's a freebie. It's either a quick +2 attack or a regular +1 if you've either got a re-enable mechanic or if you occasionally have a spare an action once in a while to just flip the switch back on.
Or you just say screw it and toss it for 2 extra attack dice.
Which is what I do.
Yeah. So my number 2 stays in the same vein, but I go USS Hood.
Nice. That's my number 1.
Okay. So we'll kind of combine here since your number 1's up next. 3 crew slots. That's something you can't overlook here. Plus a weapon and a tech slot. So Federation tech slot. That's key here. Named ability. When you initiate an attack against a cloaked ship, roll 1 extra attack die. Not going to come into play every single game, but you're not going to be sorry that you have it when it matters.
No.
You're certainly not going to make apologies for rolling 1 extra attack die.
You don't have to do anything either. It's like a light switch that comes on if there's a cloaked ship in your sights.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Scimitar. I'm rolling 1 extra attack die against you. Don't mind those upgraded phasers or Type 8 phasers either.
No. It's not like I'll be throwing 6 dice at you in this case.
Right. Oh, wait. I'm at range 1. Make that 7.
Nah.
Oh, and I have a battle station.
And flanking you so you can't shoot back.
Yeah.
180 versus 90.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to that Type 8 phaser array, which is the reason you want multiples of this pack.
Absolutely. Guilty.
You get 1 extra attack die for any ship with a primary weapon value of 3 or less. You can't have more than 1 Type 8 phaser, but you don't really need them because the only time it would really matter is...
Well, 1 per ship.
Yeah.
So you get multiples of these puppies and you have 3 ships in that class. You can throw them all out there.
Yeah. Plus we get another version of Riker, but a very good one, which you get an extra defense die, and you can convert a battle station into an evade. Plus, if your captain is disabled, you get 2 extra defense dice instead, and you can convert 2 battle stations into evades, and that works each time you defend. So, that's
it's
the
cards
key.
like this, the William H. Riker, as I call him, that makes it really tough because there are so many versions of Riker out there, and a number of them are quite good. We've got the William E. Riker, we've got William H. Riker, we've got
William P. Riker.
Yeah, we've got all these great Rikers, and it is quite a challenge to decide which one am I going to put in my fleet, because they're all good.
Yeah. The only Riker that isn't good is the starter set Riker.
Yeah, because there's even better than he.
Yeah. But
there is 2 mirror ones. You can get one of those in there as well as your standard Rikers.
And both of those are decent, at least. So
they're arguably quite good, depending on your play style.
Yes. They're at least decent, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But on the Hood, Systems Upgrade is a very nice card. You get a tech upgrade and 1 extra shield for 2 points.
So basically, you're paying what you would get to if you were just getting it on a ship, but you can put it on any of those Fed ships you like, and they give you an extra tech slot just for good measure.
Yeah, always wanted an Enterprise D with a tech slot? Here you go.
Absolutely, and given it's a question mark upgrade, it can fill in a few different spots, whether it's a crew, a tech, or a weapon slot.
Yeah, so it's self-replacing at worst, and maybe it fills up a weapon slot that you don't need.
Right, because there's a number of ships that just have more weapon slots than you're likely to use.
Yeah. Now, the kind of underdog in this pack, and the reason it stayed up high for me, is Robert DeSoto, the captain. Each time you defend, you may re-roll a number of your defense dice equal to the number of crew upgrades assigned to your ship, max of 3. Well, on something like the Hood that has 3 crew slots, or Voyager, which also has 3, DeSoto's a very nice captain.
Yeah.
Yes, you're only re-rolling the dice, and you still aren't all that likely to get evades, but
every little bit helps.
Exactly. And why not? Why not have some more evades, just to say, hey, let's give it a shot, see if we live, because every evade you get is more life. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a talent slot, and that's kind of the one drawback.
Yeah, so you'd have to add an admiral in order to get talent on that ship.
Yeah, but that's very doable.
He would be handy on a Cloak Defiant. It does have 2 crew slots.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad at all.
So Robert DeSoto and Hood Riker, that's quite a bit of defensiveness on an already decently defended ship.
Right, no Sulu needed.
No action economy required.
So there you go.
That here is what we call a solid pack.
That was my number 2, Nick's number 1, and of course, if you're paying attention, that leaves my number 1 being the Ch'tang. And really, for me, it was a toss-up between the Ch'tang and the Hood. I kind of went, I can't go wrong either way, but the Ch'tang just won out, because really good named ability, getting a free reroll while you're cloaked, so you want to cloak every round. Martok 9, while not as ubiquitously useful as Martok 8, still giving friendly ships an extra attack die and a reroll of an attack die, that's a good action.
The fact that it isn't just an action for +1 to 1 ship, that's what makes it actually valuable.
Yes.
The extra reroll is a bonus. But who wants to spend an action for 1 die?
Nobody.
Seriously.
No.
Exactly.
But giving it to all ships within range 1, that's a very versatile upgrade.
So if you can successfully fly your fleet in a tight formation, you've got it made.
Yeah. And Sinon, as you mentioned, great crew. I still think it's a bit pricey at 5 points, but if you're really depending on Sensor Echo, like maybe you're running a Ning Tao Chang build,
would have made a better crew for the Romulans than the Klingons, to be honest.
Yeah.
They're the ones that use
agree.
the Sensor Echoes more often.
True. But in mixed, you can do that for 6 points.
Absolutely.
I don't know that you want to pay 6 points, but there you go.
Yeah, well, while we still have a little bit of use on the fleet captains, it does drop it down a little bit, make it a little more affordable.
Sure.
Or some other discount shenanigans. We can make it happen.
Sure. And Barrage of Fire, of course, wonderful card. But
I'm bowing to the awesome might of the Barrage of Fire.
Defense Condition 1, also a great talent. For an action and a discard, which is the downside here. You place a battle station token beside your ship and all friendly ships at range 1 to 2.
Pretty sweet, guys.
I mean, that can be offensive or defensive. And if you run Defense Condition 1, because this is in the era of non-unique talents. So if you happen to get 2, run this on 2 different ships and use it in 2 different rounds. Now you probably don't have to take Drex and Garen.
Though they are pretty solid adds to begin with.
They are, but they are also ship lock, and Defense Condition 1 now does it for every ship.
Agreed.
So,
but you could use Drex and Garen for your attack, and Defense Condition 1 could work for defense.
Certainly. just gives you some more options. Depends on how many points you want to invest.
Exactly. And fortunately, when you're doing Klingon fleets, you do tend to have a little bit more points to work with, even if you are playing suggested format where you're capped at 50. I just find the Klingons give you more options in that format.
Yeah. Well, they have enough good, cheap ships to make it work.
Cheap ships, cheap or affordable upgrades, they just tend to work well.
Yeah, completely agree. So, again, this is another pack where the tech leaves you wanting, but still, really good cards across the board, and a pack that opened up a lot of good strategies early on and said, hey, you want to do stuff? You can do stuff.
Yeah, the Klingons aren't exactly well known for their technical prowess, except for maybe Kurak.
Yeah, I still remember the first time I used Barrage of Fire to roll 10 dice at my opponent, and they went, wait, how many?
Jaw drop. Maybe if your drop's low enough, you'll catch the mic.
Yeah, they were like, oh. And of course, I did it with the battle station token, and they were like, oh, that's going to hurt, isn't it? I'm like, yeah.
Owie, owie,
yeah,
owie, 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 owie. Kapla!
Yeah, because I had a friendly Donatra, so it buffed range 1. And they were like, oh, that hurts. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll let you kill me later.
Yeah.
Maybe. If you beg. But that's dishonorable.
Klingons don't take prisoners, except when they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are our top prize ships, and now we're going to turn it over to our contributors and see what they have to say.
Hello, this is Stephen Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina. Which ship is my favorite prize ship? This was a really hard one, but I definitely must go with the Tamir out of the Collective OP. It's a Vulcan ship, Sirach class. It has Captain Vanek. I really love Captain Vanek's ability of -2 SP for your Federation and Vulcan tech upgrades. The ship's ability is a great ability, allows you to disable one of your techs for +1 attack die. When I play Vulcans, the Tamir and Vanek is always a staple in my fleet. So definitely, that's my number 1. I'm going to cheat here and sneak in my number 2, which is the Sutherland. And the reason why I like the Sutherland really has not so much to do with the game as it does my Star Trek club, because I'm a member of Starfleet International and a member of the USS Ronald E. McNair, and our ship is the same class ship as the Sutherland, which was a Nebula class ship. So when that came out, I really had to have that one. I was lucky to get a couple of those. So anyway, this is Stephen Stott from Columbia, South Carolina. Hoping all your dice rolls are hits and evades. Have a great day. Take care.
Hi everyone, Not Picard here from the Faction Report, and my favourite prize ship is the USS Sutherland. For a long time it had a lot of upgrades in it which I really liked, like high energy sensor sweep and secondary torpedo launcher, but I think the thing that sees me use it as much as I do nowadays is it's got that 4144 slash line, which I swear by. I think it's a really good balance of attack and defence durability. So yeah, the USS Sutherland, pretty nice ship ability too. That would be my favourite prize ship, just ahead of the Chitang.
Hello players. Fortunately, I have what I consider the top OP prize ship, and I pull from it in probably every OP, and that's the USS Hood. It's a great pack with only one iffy card and brought something much needed to the meta. The Excelsior class is just solid. The Hood's ability, while situational, isn't bad. De Soto's only a 4-skill captain, but easily fixed with an admiral or fleet captain. Even without, his ability is great for building a slippery ship, which lower-skilled captains need. I love using him on Voyager with Refit Chekhov, Hood Riker, and another crew for that third reroll. And Hood Riker is probably one of the most played crew upgrades, at least at our venue. His economy is better than TOS Sulu, so he's a bit of a no-brainer. Systems upgrade and Type 8 phasers are where this ship shines. They make older and weaker vessels competitive. Type 8 can cross-faction, so the Daradex and others can throw 4. And being non-unique is why people so badly wanted multiples of the Hood, and the price on auction sites soared. Even Tachyon Detection Grid is useful, just very situational for its price. Great against permacloak fleets, which were all the rage back in the day, but the meta has shifted so you don't see them quite as often. Yet, if you can pull it off, you could decimate an entire cloaked fleet in one round. At least make them think about splitting their forces to avoid it. A bit behind the meta times, but not a bad card in and of itself. Despite that, though, the rest of the pack is at worst solid, and in my opinion, fantastic.
Hello again, this is Christopher, classic of the Holonovel. My favorite prize ship would have to be the Intrepid, truth be told. It's not the most powerful prize ship that we ever got, but I like that about it. In the past, I've had a big problem with the way WizKids handle their prize ship system. Some of the ships were just too good, at least some of the cards on those ships were just too good, and if you did either not win them, and most of Star Trek Attack Wing players didn't win them, or were not willing or able to, pay the horrendous second market prices, you were really missing out. The Chitang, the Hood, assimilation target prime was fairly decent, and I would love to get the ship, but, well, I don't. But I like the fact that if you win the Intrepid, you still get something very interesting, and you still get some very, very nice cards. I like Flag Officer, for example. Like it a lot, actually. But if you don't have it, you're not really missing out. And I like that in a prize ship. I think that is what a prize ship should represent. If you win a tournament, if you win an OP, you already have a very strong combination of cards. You already know what you're doing, and you're winning even stronger cards. It's kind of the rich get richer syndrome. And, well, we don't have to with the Intrepid. So, yeah, definitely the Intrepid, because it is fun, and because I like what it represents as something that you can have and that you can be proud of, but something that you do not must have at all costs.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. What is my top prize ship? Well, there are actually two. One, I guess that would be the top prize ship for me, is Assimilation Target Prime. Even though it was in the Mirror faction instead of the Fed, which I would have preferred, I really like the ship itself. I also like Captain Riker, although wish he was a little bit better. But I think that it was a good addition to the Mirror faction, and what's more important to me is the way it looked. I thought they did a good job on the paint job. It would have been even nicer if there was some surface detail for the Borg upgrades, but that's the ship I wanted the most. That would be my top prize ship. I'd have to give an honorable mention to the Chitang, though, because especially for Klingon players, it made an incredible difference in the early days of the game. With Defense Condition 1 and the Chitang itself, it was a heck of a powerful ship to employ in a standard 3 Klingon attack force. Thanks a lot.
John Knopp here with my pick for the top prize ship. I would have to say that the IKS Chitang is probably the best ship I've seen for a prize. Nearly everything in it is useful. The ship ability is awesome. Even better with Barrage of Fire, which is nicely included in the prize pack. Natural Captain's Gil Martok. He buffs your Klingon friends. Why not? You're going to be flying tight, usually with Klingons anyways. DEFCON 1. Again, natural battle stations for Klingons. Why would you not take it? Everyone, more battle stations. Actually, battle stations at all. Even the lesser cards in the pack are decent. The Crew Sinan brings even more mobility to the Klingons. And secondary shield emitters allows repair for your shields, where late game you might not be able to cloak. Now you can. And that would be why I would choose the Chitang as my top pick.
So I noticed how the Robinson is making use of Warp Core Breach. It's like the designers are paying service to this podcast or something. First we had the Talvith with Warp Core Ejection System for the Warp Core Breach crit. Now we have the Robinson with Warp Core Breach. It's like,
These repeated nods are starting to feel like a bobblehead.
No, bobbleheads make me think of baseball, and everything's going wrong in baseball for me right now.
Bobbleheads make me think of Fallout. My other guilty pleasure. Fallout Forever!
You're a crazy one.
Well, if you're stuck in a vault long enough, you'll probably end up being just as crazy as me.
I'll be in a vault forever. This podcast goes into the cloud. It will exist until the end of time. Or until the server dies. One of the two.
I'll just hop in my trusty TARDIS and I'll find my way to it.
Lovely. Wait, hop in your TARDIS, go back to when we recorded this, stop yourself from recording it, and then it no longer exists.
Well, why would I want to do that?
Because time is messy, and wibbly-wobbly, and timey-wimey.
It goes ding when there's stuff.
And there's a causality loop. And then Kelsey Grammer comes out of a Miranda-class starship.
And every once in a while, you get a Tashiar popping up out of nowhere. Oh, hey, Denise. Good to see you again. Wish you never left in the first place, but glad to have you back.
And then you get a Selah, or Sela, however you choose to
Sela.
pronounce it.
Sela.
And then you get a whole Romulan arc that lasts forever and ever and ever. And life goes on.
Na, life goes on.
All right, but that's enough randomness from us. We're going to get out of here because we've wasted enough of your time. I don't know that wasted is the right way to put that, but regardless, thank you for spending your time with us. We know you have many ways to spend your time. Thank you for choosing to spend your valuable time with us.
They're precious.
Warp core breach in 10.
Uh-oh.
9.
He now wants a
8.
ring.
7. 6.
Better put a ring on
5.
Yeah.
4.
So until next
This
time.
is Nick.
3.
And this is David.
2.
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.
Care Bears countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Warp Core Breach. Hey, I like how the designers... Ooh, wait, I do have our transition.
Yeah?
Okay, run with me here.
Got my jogging pants on.
I don't run that fast, so you're good.
Okay, so zombie apocalypse, you're my buddy.